basically start on the first day with a lecture, which is going to be the rules of the road. So for some people who've been here before, it's going to be a little bit of review. On the other hand, I'm not a robot, so I never do it quite the same way every time. I will take breaks in the middle, and during those breaks, I want to take the opportunity to just see how you guys are doing. I'm really just checking in to make sure you're following what I'm talking about. Okay. In the beginning, you may not. In the beginning, you may be going, why is he talking about this stuff? What I do is I give you a lot of information up front, and then I can refer back to it as we work later on in the class. Okay, so I do this in all my classes. In the life drawing class, everybody wants to shoot themselves at the end of the first day because it just seems like more than you could absorb. But honestly, I've been teaching it for years, and in 5 weeks later, everybody's doing everything that I'm suggesting with no problem at all. So these are the basic rules of the road. You are learning how to draw, not so much to copy what you see, but to interpret it, what you see in the light of what you're trying to say in your picture. Okay, so most of my students are illustrators, graphic novelists. Some of them want to go into fine art, like landscape painting, certain areas of the fine arts. A lot want to go into animation or game design. A few have actually wanted to go into live action and gotten in there, so that's good. In all of these environments, the set is part of the story. The set is either supporting the actors' expressions and moods and actions, or the set is either contrasting it. So if I have a kid who's feeling sad and I put him in a sad environment, we get one feeling about the kid. If I have a feeling who's looking sad and depressed and everything around him looks perfectly fine and happy, he's living in Leave It to Beaver's household, we're going to think a different thing. The problem with this kid is in his head. It's not in his circumstances, it's in his head. So what we're doing is starting to design our assets, and this is what we're referring to these things as: prop designs, locations. I'm starting with prop designs here, and these are assets which you are building for your project, and I'm going to be teaching you the basics or the component parts from which we create style. So in the beginning, I'm talking about component parts. As we go on, you're going to absorb these things, and I'm going to be saying, how are we going to use these component parts to create one style or to create another? So a lot of the examples I'm going to give you examples of student work. And a lot of them at this stage of the game are about, basically the elements of style as applied to drawing. They're not necessarily style themselves. It's really about the elements of style applied to drawing. Learning how to use arcs, learning how to use big, medium, and small, learning how to effectively use overlapping planes. So they're going to be very archy and curvy, and they sort of, there's a little similarity between some of the drawings. That changes immediately when we get into a style development class, because then you start favoring some of these tools over others. And when you do that, you're kicking the style one way, you're kicking the style the other way. You guys see what I'm talking about? So in a sense, I have always referred to this class as an advanced foundational class. I assume you have, reasonable drawing skills to get into this class. And from what I could see, everybody does. So we're in good shape. Now what we're doing is turning your reasonable skills into skills which are going to allow you to design projects. So this is about designing projects down the line. And just to give you an idea of how this was organized before I came to Drawing America, and then I'm going to get into it. This class, Mad Science, and a class we haven't offered yet, which is going to come probably next term, which is going to be pure composition. In this class, it's a lot of drawing and some composition. In Mad Science, it's a lot of drawing and some composition. In the composition class, it's composition. I'm assuming essentially that you've taken the first two classes. I would teach this class, Mad Science and composition, in 14 weeks at Art Center. It almost killed everybody. And I did it anyway, right? Because the Art Center students, they go there to be killed. Okay, so here, that's not the same. And also here, because we're online, I can do things differently. You're getting 6 weeks of one, then you get a little break. If you want to do it again, if you like what I'm doing, you take 6 weeks of the other, like Mad Science, Then you take a break. Then you get 6, and we're thinking about 8 weeks for composition. So a 14-week class turns into an 18 or a 20-week class with breaks. And that's better. And that's better. And then we can break things down more logically. So what you're getting is the same class I'm teaching there, but you're getting more time. And the lack of time was always the problem there, because a college where you meet in a classroom has to limit the length of time of a term. They have to, because students burn out. You know, you can just see them turning, you know, they just die in the classroom. You can see it. But you guys will get a couple weeks off, a few weeks off, then you start over again, see? So this is a very good system. We're working it out. Not all these workshops have to be the same length of time. If a workshop is 4 weeks, we're not going to make it 6. We'll make it 4, right? If it's 8 weeks, we'll make it 8, because I think it'll be better. You'll have more time to experiment and, you know, get better at this. I'm thinking about project classes as well, where we may have a project class where you say, do one project all term long, and we take it from beginning to end. That's a portfolio class. You know, that might be 12 weeks, right? You know, something like that. So we're gonna vary the lengths of all this based on what's actually needed. And the idea is just to drive this cost down, but also to have everything be what you need. So, okay, now I'm gonna go to my page, and we're gonna just start the process here, okay? I'm gonna go to my desktop 2. I need to have you guys let me know if you can see the cursor moving around. You see it moving around? All right, good. And don't be polite. If I forget something or you can't see the screen or something, make sure that you let me know, okay? All right. So coming down here, we're going to talk about some basics. And I'm going to give this to you, by the way. I gave this notepad to you as we go along. All right. Now I'm going to talk basics, and they're going to be really basic. So some of you guys, if you've been here before, you've seen it. We're going to talk about triangles, circles, and squares. All right. Okay. So we think of triangles as active, we think of circles as peaceful, and we think of squares as stable. So the reason we do this is that triangles are pointers, and triangles, if we create overlaps using triangles, tend to create triangular negative spaces. And so they basically, if you use enough of them, start making people feel nervous, okay? And this is good. We want to make people feel nervous. We want to make people feel happy, sad, nervous, relieved. We want them to feel all of these things. And so to do this, especially visually, we have to use shapes to do it. Shapes are the key to all of this. So when you're drawing, you're actually a designer who's using drawing to develop your design. So that's the thing I want you to take away from this. You are not learning how to draw from observation. You are drawing from observation. That's a practical matter. However, you're going to take from that and turn it into something else, something essentially better, clearer, and more easily understood. All right? So that's what this does. And you'll see it all the time in so many ways you can't even, recognize it. Now, circles are peaceful, because circles, they just look like a bunch of bubbles, right? I can put them in front, I put them behind, I come in here. So circles are peaceful, all right? However, circles draw the eye in and don't give the eye anywhere to go. So as a practical matter, we use circles in bits and pieces, and I'll explain how this works later. And that means we're going to cut circles apart like this. So this is how we mainly see circles. We don't see circles like this very much. We mainly see them like this, okay? And squares are stable. That's because they're the same on both sides. They're less, you could say, interesting than triangles. They're less dangerous feeling than triangles. Squares help us to establish overlaps, plane changes. I can make squares draw the eye in a certain direction. If I start going like this, see how the square is beginning to draw our eye in that direction? Okay, that's because this is a square based on a triangle. So that's a series of squares put into a triangular format. Okay, so yeah, I can make squares pointers if I build the squares so they fit into a triangular format. All right, and when we come back to just squares, what's the first way that we notice when we're designing with squares? If I'm going to do a composition and I place the horizon low, I've taken that and I have basically made a low horizon, and it's going to jut the ground plane towards me, and it's going to make the sky feel higher. See, like this? All right, but I've made 1, 2 squares to do it, and that ground plane, that picture is off to a nice peaceful start. Okay, if I come up here, make it a high horizon, which, you know, in composition, I'm always recommending to students that they don't do this in the beginning. In fact, I have all kinds of ways of putting it. I'll write, you know, this way lies pain and suffering. You know, I'll draw flies going into the flames. Anything to get students not to do this in the beginning. They never listen to me. So I'm telling you, when we get to this, don't do this. There is an application for this. There may be 3 students in this class that I know can pull this off. But what happens is, here exaggerates the size relationships between things and creates overlaps, which create depth, you see, going back. So this is going to help that. This makes things look more or less the same size, and also it makes it harder to place things in front and behind. So this makes, you know, you're looking down on a scene. You need this because this is showing me the set. So number 1 is the designer's favorite. We're going to come in here and put a star next to it. Number 2, we also use it, but it's not so much for style, it's for showing the set. Also other things, okay? So this is how it works. Let's take a look at here. If I do this, and I angle like this, well, you know, already that's more exciting than what we had before, because I'm creating a composition based on 2 triangles. The other thing that happens, which by the way, you guys should be aware of, is the eye has a tendency to flow into the larger space. So if I come in here and I divide my composition in half, the viewer doesn't know whether to look up or down. Human beings aren't very good at deciding what to look at if things are equal, but we are better at this, coming in here, lowering the horizon, and if we do that, the eye will go up, okay? Now, the eye tends to read from, you know, left to right anyway, so here, the eye will tend to go here, okay? Well, this is significant. It means that I've made, you know, 1 line in my composition. I'm already telling the eye where to go, right? And in a composition, and especially for film, where a 4-second shot is a very long shot, you want to have people, you don't want people to get lost or have to take any time at all figuring out where they're supposed to look. One of our prima facie rules is direct the eye to the action. And the action could be the actors or whatever it is you're supposed to be looking at. So this will send the eye up. This here will send the eye down, okay? Here is a little 50-50. If I go like this, here's the side of a hill. Here is where I'm going to look, okay? Now, if I come in here and put an angle like this, I can start messing with this, see, kind of going like this. I can start pushing the eye down because now this becomes the big open area, you see? So based on one concept, which is that the eye will tend to flow into the open area, we can start pushing the eye around the composition, and we haven't done anything with overlaps yet. We're still thinking flat graphics. So this is still okay. Flat graphics are great. We're coming in there and we're putting it together. So once we start adding overlaps in there, we're going to start having dimensional graphics. So once I get overlaps in, we start getting dimension, and that's going to be one of our next series of basics that we're going to talk about. When we start dividing these spaces, we're going to use proportions. You'll see I have a note up here reminding me to do this. And the proportions we're going to see, and most of the time what you're going to see is 20, 80, 40, 60, 50, 50, and 1/3, 2/3. This is not, by the way, based on the golden section. This is just, these are proportions which everybody has discovered over hundreds of years make enough of a difference between two sizes that we can easily see the difference, okay? So for example, if I do 45 and 55, it's kind of hard for me to be able to tell the difference between the two. Okay, there's a 10% difference, right? So if I go into 40-60, however, they're similar in size, but one is clearly larger. And we don't want to create mystery in this case. We want these things to be clear. This is the idea that you have to get in your mind. A certain kind of subtlety in the form of confusion, you know, which people think of frequently, or I think mistakenly, as subtlety in composition and in communicating ideas, is very overrated. It's actually through clarity that we can get to subtle subjects. It's through clarity. I have to know what I'm looking at, and then what you put in there and how you arrange it could have me think about all kinds of things. You know, you could address many kinds of ambiguity in a picture. You could do a picture about ambiguity. A guy's in there, he doesn't know what to do, and you could show the reasons why he doesn't know what to do through the elements that you're putting in the composition. So you're putting him in an ambiguous situation. But if I'm distracted by two objects over in the left, which one's bigger, which one's smaller, right? It's like, it's sort of like going to a stage play and Hamlet's, doing his soliloquy, and some guy's picking his nose on the other end of the stage. The entire audience is going to watch that guy, and they're not going to watch Hamlet. And that's what I think. When you create these kinds of pointless problems, which is bigger, they're almost the same, but they're not really different. What's going on? It's going to create a fractional distraction from your story. And here's the deal. People who make these mistakes make them a bunch of times in the same picture, and your picture's sense of design, composition, and storytelling collapses into a mess, or you're stuck making only very simple pictures. And so I want you guys to be able to make complex pictures, pictures that actually can address ambiguity. And that means we want certain kinds of subtlety. So these are the major proportions. Oh, wait. They're the only proportions. In other words, these are the only proportions you use. You don't use any other proportions. You're going to measure something, it's going to be one of these. All right? If it's 45-55, you're going to make it 40-60 or 50-50. You're going to make a decision. But you're not going to use ambiguous proportions, okay? And these make a difference. And there's one exceptional, which is 10-90. 1090 is kind of a specialty, and I'm going to say that actually 50-50, I'm going to call these tricky. Tricky to use, and they're kind of a specialty tool. Okay? Okay, the only proportions. All right, so let's move on to some other things which are going to help you here. All right? Let's do this. Let's come down and show you how these are going to break down. Now I'm talking about circles here, so we're talking about these bits and pieces of the circles because that's how they actually show up. We're going to talk about a technical thing here. Okay, technically, this is called a line, okay? And this here is called an opposition. So 1 is a line, 2 is an opposition. All right? Now, 3 right in here is a transition. Okay, now what this is doing is modifying my experience of the corner. If I come in here with my eye hits here, I bang into this corner, it's pretty jarring, then I change direction. If I come in here and subtly round the corner like this, see, my eye can more easily go around the corner, all right? If I come in here like this, my eye can more easily go around the corner, all right? So it's kind of like with design, it boils down to circles, triangles, and squares, and they each have a character. And as we start driving our shapes towards one of these basic shapes or another, what you're drawing is going to start to take on the character of these shapes. We can modify the character of these shapes by using lines, oppositions, and transitions. And we can actually say that this right here is what drawing is. Okay? So drawing is lines that cross and are modified by circular transitions. All right? It doesn't look like this because these things are used so often and so fast and so interchangeably that we don't think about it. So let's take our triangles, circles, and squares for a moment over here. Okay? And actually, I'm gonna put that off for a little bit, and I'm gonna come in here to the rule of threes, okay? Just to get into the basics. So we're gonna go to the rule. Rule of threes. Okay, the first thing is anything can be applied to the rule of threes, okay? We can also do it with 2, and 3 gives us, you know, more modulation, so we're going to use 3. So 3 constitutes a bunch. In a fairy story, you know, it's 3 people going down a road. They have 3 trials they have to go into. They meet 3 strangers. Maybe they meet 5, but 3 is the minimal number that says bunch. So, you know, you'll be surprised. 90% of the time, you're just going to be using 3 variants of the same thing. Let's start with this. Let's start with values. We have light, and we have medium, and we have dark. See, going like this. Now, let's understand this a little bit. If I go like this, and I understand that value is on a gradient, right? So over here, and I'm going to have to make my brush a little bigger. Over here, we have black, and then it starts to get a little lighter in here. Then it gets a little lighter over here, and we end up with a little area that's pure white, okay? In my rule of threes, I could have my lightest value be here. I could have my darkest value be here. So those represent the poles, okay? Those are the poles. You know, this is as far as I can go this way, and this is as far as I can go this way. If I take my middle value and put it over here, this is option 1, my composition will tend to be overall lighter. You see? So if I put my middle value here, that's number 2, it will be overall darker. So the middle value has a special job, right? It slides up and down that bar and decides whether we're going to go a little higher key, which is lighter, or lower key, which is darker. And the white and the black in this case are establishing my poles. They're saying it will get no lighter than this, and it may not be white, it will get no lighter than this, and it'll get no darker than this. Okay, so basically the rule of threes works this way on everything. Okay, so let's come in here and we'll just call the pole 2, and then pole 1. All right, let's try this. Here's a big shape. How do I know it's big? I got to compare it to something. All right. Okay, so here's a medium shape. So what do I have now? I have big and small, right? So I have a binary. I have big and small. If I come over here, now I have a small shape. Okay? Now, what I recommend you guys do is keep a 30% difference between these, at least a 30% difference. Okay, and this is small, this is big, and this is medium. Okay, now when we're doing this, we tend to organize all of our shapes big to small. So I put this back here like this, and it is on a ground plane coming forward like this. So we're going to have a ground plane coming forward. We'll talk about ground planes a lot. And then I will have my medium shape here on the ground plane. And then I will have my small shape here on the ground plane. All right. The way we show this, I'm going to call this ground plane. All right. The way we show this is like this. We're going to have the big shape in the back, the medium shape here, and the trick is right here. And then we'll put the small shape here. This is so important. We are going to use red. You have to show me that they are advancing on the ground plane. All right? If you don't, oh no, I'm flat. And I will be every time, right? So it's very, very important to basically make this clear. And the way you do it is right down here, okay? So that ground plane is establishing depth. And we're using big, medium, and small, okay? This is depth. This is not depth. This is graphics. Okay? Nothing wrong with graphics. It's just not depth, and that's what we're talking about right now. Okay? One second. The worst part is my handwriting. It's graphics. Okay? So that's big, medium, and small. Okay? Now, in a picture, we also have, and I'll come over here to the top of the rule of threes again, we're going to have at least a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. And this is not something we're going to worry about too much right in the beginning, but if I come in here and I have, you know, rocks, things like this in the foreground, then I come up here and I have a little cabin, see, coming out here like this. I have one, a foreground, I have two, a middle ground, and I have three, a background, and we just call it a BG. Okay, so the foreground is called an FG. This is a MG. Okay, and if you're going to have a bunch of foregrounds, and there's a reason to have a bunch of foregrounds, you're going to have FG 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same with the background. And that has to do with how we handle the layer stack in Photoshop. So, you know, you're going to have Photoshop arranged so that the foreground is on top. Here is middle ground. And then down here is the background. Okay. I have students start by putting their drawing layer on the top. So I'm going to put this up here. And I'm going to say, this is your drawing on multiply. Now, multiply is a layer option in Photoshop. So that's pretty straight up, okay? And there's so many ways to think about, you know, this rule of threes. Here's another one having to do with materials. We're going to have this is texture. So this is complex texture. Here, this is medium complex, okay? And then this here is, you know, low complexity, or I call it simple, okay? So this goes with something else, which has to do with the idea of simple and complex, by the way, which is you want to organize your shapes so that they tend to favor a simple side on one side and a complex side on the other. This can actually switch, where this goes like this, and then we come over here and it goes like this. So in both cases, I know where I'm supposed to look. So here we'll have simple, and then here we'll have complex. And there are many, many examples of this. Here is simple, and here is complex. When it comes to texture, though, again, if we have that middle range right here favoring complex, then what we're looking at is going to feel overall more complex. If we have it favoring the simple, it'll feel overall more simple. This is very important in, and I'm just going to write the word textures here. This will apply to the sides of buildings. This will apply to costumes. This will apply to literally everything, okay? And if you have a foreground, middle ground, background here, and you use only 3 values, okay? Foreground, middle ground, background with 3 values, okay? Means there are only 6 ways to your painting. Okay, and that's good. You don't want a bunch of ways to set up your painting. Okay, so it's going to be light foreground, dark middle ground, medium background, medium foreground, dark middle ground, light background. Once you work through the numbers, that gives you your primary atmospheric lighting setup. So how come I can use that to make anything? It has to do with degree of contrast, okay? If it's very, very low contrast, if my light, medium, and dark are very close together in value, you know, it's going to look like a foggy day, or it's going to look like a forest fire, right? Because the values are very close together. If they're very, very separated, it's going to look more like noontime in the Caribbean or something like that, right? So, you know, these things have a lot of things that make them work. All right. Now, the next thing is, you'll see how the rule of 3s is pretty significant, right? Okay, so we're going to come here and we're going to say, okay, let's talk about line quality a little bit when you're working with your lines. And for this, I just go like this here. This is a soft line. So it's soft, okay? And rounded edges like this mean medium line, medium. This is a hard line, okay? I have thin, medium, thick lines, right? And I'm also going to have, you know, so and I'm going to have light, medium, dark lines, which will be easier to do if I was to actually vary. So this is light, medium, dark lines, all right? So for what we're doing, how would this work? Now, right here, I'm going to drag this into the center so everybody can see it. Everybody can see my swatch palette, right? Okay. So I have this really nice, look at this, isn't it great? Huh? This is amazing. All right, I go all the way down here. It's got a range of values. It's got flesh tone values in here. None of them will be perfect, but they're sure a good start. And what they do is they give me dark brights. And at the top, the part I tend to use most for what I'm doing, I have a nice range of values and occasional colors in here I can use to highlight things. So I tend to use this area quite a bit. All right. So, you know, when people are drawing, especially on the computer, they rarely are using 100% black. Okay, so I'm going to say, I'm going to put a box in here. We're going to say on the computer. Okay. We tend to want to come up here and see this is sort of a pretty black looking shape, but that's actually more like a 90%. Okay, so this is like a 90% right here. If I come in here, this is, I'm gonna get, that's more like an 80, but I'm gonna come all the way down here to a 70. So see, 80 may not be quite enough, okay? This is like a 70. All right. If I come down here, 60. Okay. If I come down here, if I come here, right? This is something I have available to me on the computer, right? So this is like 30, whatever, okay? When people are drawing on the computer, they tend to draw the outside edges of their objects like this, a little darker than they draw the insides. Okay, now I'm not talking about the kind of heavy outlining you see with some industrial design. Like some industrial design, they'll come in there and design, you know, like a toaster, right? So here you have this toaster here, and then there will be this thick outline going around it like this, okay? And that for them makes sense because what they're doing is they're saying, here is the interior shape of the toaster, and here's also the silhouette. I'm not doing this for that. This is not what I'm after, okay? I'm after clarity. And what you don't want to have is, you do not want to have the inside competing with the outside. Okay, so the outside is the silhouette. Okay, so it's going to be slightly lighter. And again, I'm not talking about this. No. Yes. Okay, I'm talking about something that's more subtle. All right, now even the outside might only be 80%. Maybe 85. Okay. The inside, you know, might be 70%. Maybe 75. Okay. These are judgment calls. These are things that you're going to want to think about. But when you're thinking about it, you're basically saying, is the interior of my object competing with the exterior of my object? And that's something you don't want, okay? I'm going to show you designers. Some of these designers use this tool all the time. Other people don't really do it. They basically just use, you know, like maybe line weight. So let's talk about that. I could come in here and say, all my line weights on the outside are going to be lighter or thicker. So I have to make my brush smaller, thicker than all my line weights on the inside. See, I might be able to make that work, but you can see that even here, that interior structure is competing more with the exterior, right? So I might want to make this thicker, make this thinner and lighter. Okay, all right. So let's see here. Let me come over here. Okay. Let's do one of those quick check-ins I promised. Okay, so you guys following what I'm saying? You good? All right, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward until you start using it. It's easy when I'm doing it. It's going to be interesting when you do it, okay? All right, good. So simple and complex, big, medium, and small, depth. Let's start getting into degrees of dimension, and we're going to continue forward. Okay, so here we go. Thumbs up. Always better than thumbs down. Can you see everything moving? Yeah? All right, okay. So, oops, wait. Okay, so we have, and it's somewhat a rule of three thing, but not exactly. We're going to come up here and say, okay, now let's talk about how we show things and represent things. So here is a perfect box. I'm really good at perspective drawing, see? It's gorgeous. You're just seeing it on the end. That's why you can't see the other sides. Here, okay? Now, this is a one-sided box. This is a two-sided box. Notice that I cannot see the top. You see that right there? Okay. So what that means is that this is at my eye level. Oops, eye lever. See at least the letters are facing in the right direction today. Okay, so then here, is even more dimensional. 1, 2, 3, okay? So this wants to be in the back. This wants to be in the middle. And this wants to be in the front. Now, if you look at those, this one feels closer, this one feels in the middle, and this one feels in the back, okay? So the more sides of an object showing, the more it tends to want to come to the front. So when I'm organizing groups of objects, I'm going to have, and remember, we did this before, right? Here's my big, medium, small, horizon line, I'm sorry, ground plane right here, not horizon line, but ground plane. And then this is all going like this, right? So these are flat graphic shapes we're doing this with. Okay, so here we're going to say the object in the back tends to be the flatter. And there's a little trick to this, which I'm going to talk to you about. And then here, this is eye level. So this is beginning to project forward. So that's the ground plane on the bottom. And then down here, I can see three sides of this object down here because I'm looking down at it, you see? So this here, this object in the very back here, this one is 1 to 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay? Everybody see this? All right. That's because this is farther away, so it may have lower contrast. We may just simply design it this way. Okay? And there are other things to think about. This is on eye level, which means I can stack things on it if I want. See, I can put cans on it, but I'm never going to see what's on the top because this is eye level. Eye lever. I do that every time, don't I? Okay, so eye level, and here I'm looking down. okay? So this is how we stack objects, and it's one of the few true rules you're going to encounter in this, where basically we always have our biggest object in the back. Here's the ground plane coming forward. Always draw in the ground plane. Can I put the ground plane on a different level? Sure, why not? In fact, good idea, right? Okay. And then I'm going to be stacking things coming forward. And everything has its own ground plane. And I bring everything forward as I come forward. And everything gets smaller as we come forward. Okay? So, you know, all of this gets smaller. This is one of the few times that we actually have a solid rule. Now, the reason is if I take this and put the big object in the front, and I have the ground plane going this way, you can't see anything. Right? So the reason we always go from big to small is because if you turn it around, you can't see anything. All right? This is where the design gets interesting, okay? And this is where we deal with a concept called proximity. Okay, it's very important in what we do, okay? So let me put a bunch of poorly drawn stars all the way around, okay? So proximity means that if I put a texture here, right? And I put a simple here, or so I have a complex here, and then I put another same texture here, I don't lose any clarity. I can come in here, put it here, I lose no clarity, all right? I can come in here, put in a simple, okay? And if I have it all set up right, I won't lose clarity, all right? If I come in here and put it right next to it, I lose clarity, okay? So proximity really means that all that matters in what we do is what's exactly next to something else. If it's not right next to it, it's got nothing to do with it. Okay, so if I come in here and say, this is here, in terms of clarity, at least it has nothing to do with it. And I put this in and I put this down here, right? One has to do with two. It has nothing to do with this. This here, one, has to do with two. But one and one don't really have anything to do with each other. They don't really have anything to do with each other. So that's how this proximity thing works. Now, this here is important when we get into here, because once we start getting into stacking objects like this, once we get here, this is where design comes into play. Everything else is very bits and pieces until we get here. So if I'm going to design a rock, let's say I come in here and let me just get rid of this. I'm going to first put in a ground plane. I'm going to make it really loose, like I would sketch it. So come in here like this, see? Here's the back wall of my set, right? So I'm going to have something back there to kind of push off of a little bit. And I'm going to come in here and I'll make my rock go like this, see? Okay, that's a simple. Here is a complex. See, I'm going to come in here and pull this forward and have these complex shapes come forward. And then I'm going to have a complex shape come forward here, right? So I haven't lost any clarity. And the reason I haven't is because my complexes aren't touching, you see? So when I come back in here like this, see, I can come in here and have complexes in here, and then have a simple here and a complex here. So just to make it, you know, a little bit clearer, I'm separating out these areas in here by making them more detailed, and I'm separating out the front by making it less detailed, okay? And so I can draw rocks, I can draw plants, I can draw trees, I can draw anything I want, literally using this one technique. This one technique I can use for drawing almost everything. If I'm going to draw a plant, I can come in here, here, here's something coming out, here we'll kind of come in there, See, I'm combining simple and complex. I'm bringing some things on the outside. I come up in here. All I'm thinking is simple and complex. Here's the trunk of the tree. Okay. All right. So here it is in a nutshell. It's all about this. This turns into everything. Okay. This goes over here. All right. What does that have to do with these objects? Here's my big object in the background. Here is my object here. And by the way, you know, maybe you don't have one that's on eye level. I just do it because that breaks it down to something that's really easy to understand. We come in, oops, don't want a tangency. So we'll come in there like this, right? So I can come in here, see, and this is fine. I'm looking down on whatever this is. This is in the middle, so that's two-sided. Here is my big background element, and it's simple, okay? It's 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. This only has to be simple when it's near this box. I can come up here and do this, and it doesn't upset the structure. You see what I mean? See how that works? Okay, so you're designing through structures. The other thing we're using here is overlaps. Here is an overlap. Here is an overlap. Here, draw it lighter. It'll look like it's farther away. That's an overlap. Here, draw it lighter. It'll look far away. All right? Here's an overlap. Here's an overlap. Here's an overlap. If I start doing this, I'm very quickly going to get bushes. See what I mean? Because this here, overlap, 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 overlap. See what I mean? It's just a series of overlaps. That's all it is. All right? So this is here to here to here. Okay? Here's an overlap. These are overlaps. I'm just going here, 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 here. You see what I mean? Okay, I'm concealing the overlap underneath the stuff. Okay, so there's the concept. That's one. And then we use the concept to make two. the stuff, which is, objects. Okay? Now, 1 second. And we're going to go, 70. Takes it a moment to catch up. Hold on. Okay. Okay. All right. So overlaps are basically a huge chunk of drawing. Okay. So we come in here. Come on. 1 second. Every so often, Photoshop just decides to torment me. Okay. So here, I have ground planes. So here, down here, I have this. Then I have this, and then I have this, okay? We started the day with this. So I'll come in here and say, oh, I like this. We're going to come in and go rocks, cactus. I'm in California, so you'll have to see cactus. Also, they're easy to draw. Come in here, bigger rock, okay? And then I come in here and I can finish up these details very easily right about down to here. See, I can come in and get these rocks in here. That looks pretty good. Then I run into a problem. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to create another ground plane. See, I'll come in here like this and I'll have this coming in. So now this is pretty easy to make work. And when that gets difficult, see, I create another ground plane. You see how that's beginning to lay down and go back? Okay. So I start with my graphic shape because it's the big graphic driver of my composition. I'm going to start with this, see? And if I was doing a film study, it would look like this, basically. This is the driver of the composition. Everything else is just detail, okay? Then I come in here and I'll say, okay, maybe I don't want these lines in the background, see, to touch the foreground. So I'm going to come in here, but you're going to notice that all these lines will fade out before they touch this. I can have complexity up here if I want because of proximity. And here, and I come in here, do the same thing, right? And back over in here is where we're going to look because that's where the eye will be sent. And I might have, you know, the castle, the Anasazi village, something over there. And then I'll have some kind of roadway taking me over there, okay? So this is how overlaps work. And now we're creating depth. Now we're not using any fancy perspective either, are we? We're just kind of creating overlaps. And so this gets into subordination, you know, and so if we're going to subordinate, we have subordination by axis, okay? Subordination means I'm organizing everything around that line. So I can create a leaf, okay? And that central line here, this line is the axis, okay? That leaf is, so this is subordination by axis. This one here, if I have these leaves coming out, this here is radiation. And so I have subordination by radiation. That's controlling where the leaves are coming from, you see. And then I have subordination by axis. which controls the lines going in. Now, the reason this works is because the lines, all your individual lines want to attract attention to themselves. So what we do is we control everything, see? Like this. And you'll start to see this. I know right now you're probably thinking, you know, this seems like a lot of academic bullshit to me. But when you start drawing with it, okay? So that's radiation, and this is axis, right? So now we've combined the two. This is another one of those things where drawing is about subordinating things by axis, radiation, transitioning things. This is boiling it down once again to a very simple thing. So why do overlaps work? Because overlaps subordinate everything by size. So if I come in here and I'll put in something like this, see? Then I put something behind it, and I'll put simple behind complex and come in like this, and I make this big. See, the viewer now understands, and I might put several of them back here, see. The viewer will understand that we've gone a distance from, you know, A to B, see. And if I come in here, and they're just kind of like this on the hill, see? And I don't even have to detail them. Everybody's going to understand this. You see what I mean? So, B to C. What does this mean to us, though? What does this mean to us? When we design a prop, and we're seriously getting into animation, you know, I want that big six-figure income, okay? I'm going to get into animation. It means that you have to know how to draw a cactus in the A size, in other words, big. You have to recognize you're going to draw that cactus differently when it's medium. And you have to recognize you're going to draw that cactus differently when it's small. And that's why silhouette's so important. If I get the silhouette of the cactus right, then I'm going to understand this cactus no matter how small it gets, okay? So silhouettes again. Okay? All right, so subordination by size. Okay, so I'm just going to call this okay. All right, so now I'm going to talk about your assignment. Okay, and I'm going to, 1 second, image, canvas size. I always have to make them bigger. It's 100 inches long. Okay. Okay, so you're going to design for me 30 planks, and I want them all to be the same length, and I want them to be fairly long like this. Sometimes people do planks like this, and it's like, look at the size of your side of your house. Do you ever see a plank that's like a foot long? Right? You just don't. And your planks are going to have a simple side and a complex side. And the eye is going to go in the direction of the complex side. So we'll come in here, put this in. This can come in here. It can be jagged, right? This we would keep fairly simple, okay? We're going to put wood grain, which, by the way, runs the entire length of the thing, comes up like this. It'll have knot holes. Some of the knot holes will come out. You're going to do a good job on this, right? So you're going to come in here and you're going to make this thing really sweet. So how am I going to make it look really sweet? It's going to be, you know, darker on the outside. The lines will be a little lighter on the inside. If I come in here like this, right? This is complex. If I go over here like this is simple. And this is complex, okay? So I'm taking a simple piece of wood and I'm coming in here and I'm saying it's simple and it's complex, and I'm using all the tools that I learned today to do a simple thing, right? Now, what's wrong with that one? Well, the outside lines aren't dark enough to really compete with the inside. You get very subtle with it, okay? Bring this in. By the way, wood, if I have a plank coming towards me like this, and by the way, we have a reference library at Drawing America, which, you know, we put it together since the last class. So I have been photographing reference for students for, I don't know, 20 years. And we're putting the vast majority of it on Drawing America's website. And if you go there, you're going to see it. So you can find it. And you can also use your own reference. You know, I don't care if you use your own reference, but, you know, I know what I'm looking for, taught the class a bunch of times. So what happens here is grain goes all the way through the wood. As the wood gets older, the edges are going to round a little bit, okay? So we need 30 of these, all right? Line them up in a row, make them tidy. I'm going to show you some examples of good ones, okay? So we're going to go like this and just line them up in a row, okay? So 30 of those, and then I want you to do 5 boxes for me. And I'm going to show you how to do this box, because as we bring things forward, remember, here's my box. You've been practicing these. Okay? So here is the thickness of the wood on the top, see? So the wood is thicker on the top up here. So let's come in and just kind of stick it in here like this, see? All right, so there's a piece of wood right there. And here's what I want you to notice. 1, 2, 3. If I come back here, 1, 2, okay? So then let's put a piece of wood on the front. See, we'll come in here. And by the way, you know, you can exaggerate the wood. So 1, 2, 3. So really, the idea of this exercise is to get you to use the tools you've learned today, right? And to design something with them. Now, do I want, you know, perfect little boxes, or do I want boxes that are interesting and fun to look at? I'm a ticket buyer. Okay? I'm a ticket buyer. I want things that are interesting to look at and have character in them. So you're going to come in and put character into these boxes. And actually, on my Instagram feed, I have posted examples of really good work that was done last term in this class, okay? If I want to have the front come forward a little bit more, I'll go like this. See, there's a knot hole. Oh, look. That knot hole gives me a 1, 2, okay, right where I want it, brings it forward, okay? I may want a little bit of wood grain in here, but not too much. If I get too even, if I make the wood grain too even, I'm going to have a problem. I may want to raise the top of the corner pieces here, see? Come over here, make them smaller, but raise the top a little bit. That'll give me a little bit of shape in the back. It's going to bring the back closer. How could I counteract bringing the back closer? Let's draw it a little lighter. Let's make the back of the box lighter than the front, okay? Because remember, in the crit, which some of you probably seen already, I was saying I like your boxes. You have a little tendency to draw as if you're doing pattern drawings, which we're going to get you off of, okay? But one of the things we want to do is make the front a little darker, see? So I might draw this with an 85 if I'm on the computer. I might draw this with a 70. Or if I'm using a traditional pencil, I'm just going to draw lighter, right? I mean, the reason, but I like the idea of 70 to 85. I can say, even if you're drawing with your pencil, you may not go fully black, okay? All right? So we have, you know, this stuff coming forward. We have some wood grain coming forward. Be sure to put some nails in here, okay? And in animation, you know, the animation world, people are not great carpenters. You know, they tend to, you know, make their boxes. Maybe they had a little too much carrot juice first, right? So, you know, the measuring is bad. All that stuff makes things stick up, right? So everything is sticking up. Put a knot hole towards the front because then it'll draw the eye to the front. Show this in the back. You see what I'm saying? You know, we could or could not put a knot hole here. We could put something that's, you know, in here that goes like this in the back. Poking a hole in the back side is a great idea too. See, we come in here like this, two-sided coming in, poking a hole over there, showing it coming to here. Again, making the measurements, you know, a little bit funky is a really good idea. And this is, by the way, how a knot hole comes out if it comes out at an angle, right? And then here, okay? So let's talk about the silhouette quality you want to have here. We're going to come in here. I'm going to make it very light, even lighter. I'll come in here. Okay, so we come in here. This is light, and this is sticking out. See, I want that sticking out over there. Bring this in. I want that in, right? So here, sticky outy, we want that. Here, I like that white space back there, see? See, we're going to come in here, and there's that white space. So that's good. We come over here. See what I mean? I come down here. See, now I'm just filling it in. I'm not really thinking in terms of lighting so much as the silhouette, which means any of these things in here can be filled in. See, this might come out to here, then in to the support beam, then out a bit and in. See, so all of this is filling in. And then back in here, these things are sticking up, see? These are coming down. This is here, okay? So just, you know, sort of cleaning it up ever so slightly. I go from multiply to normal, and I'll sample on white. And we can come in here, see? And this is all nice negative space in here, see? This in here is nice negative space. It's inside the form, and that's what we want. We want those spaces inside in here. This is all negative space down here, okay? This here is sticking out. I might make this stick out more, right? I can exaggerate this, and it's why I want you to do, how many boxes did I say before? 5? Yeah, I lied. Yeah, we need 7 boxes. Okay. All right. We need 7 boxes. And I'm going to show you. So first, number 1, you do this. Number 2, you do this. The boxes are based on character. You're making them look like something. Take a look at Lilo and Stitch. Take a look at the drawings of Paul Felix for Lilo and Stitch. And we're just going to give you a little bit of show and tell. Okay? See what I mean? So what she did is learned how to draw the wood. Then she had some fun doing these things, right? Now look, she realized something that was, this is Lynette, who's really good. So what she realized was, oh, I see, a table is a box, right? And just a table is just a box with all the sides missing, right? Here's a completely enclosed box, okay? Here's a box. See how the back is lighter than the front? All right. So, you know, this is pretty helpful, don't you think, for this assignment? Okay. So, you know, let's do this. Let's stop the share for a moment. And let's take Lynette's drawing here. Yeah. And put it into the chat. Okay, so we'll just come over here. There it is in the chat. And then here, some really good wood done by Todd Kowalski. Okay, so really nicely done wood here. Okay. And you'll get today's lecture as well. All right. Okay, so can everybody see that? Is it on your screens? All you have to do is download it and you'll have it. Okay. All right. So where does this lead us, and what road are you being led down, and where will you get eventually? Let me show you. I'm just going to sample a few of these, open them up. And I'm using student work because student work shows you, because what the students are doing is showing you what they know. So all of these people are out working now, okay? So this is Amelia Caston, and Amelia really latched on to the S-curve, right? So you'll see she's using arcs very, very well. And these are her thumbnail sketches. We'll get to that portion of it, but you'll notice that her lines are a little thicker on the outside, a little thinner on the inside. Not always, because she's subtle, right? I mean, when I teach you the principle, there's the principle, and then there's using it with some subtlety, right? Here is Amelia again, showing prop designs, and you'll see that she's getting everything sticking out very nicely, right? Now, these are Art Center students, and so, you know, I'm starting to collect some excellent work from students in this class who have been in this class as well. Okay, I post them on Instagram. I'm going to show you some of these. These are all done traditionally, and what you should know is they're done using a 10% marker in the beginning to block everything in, and then a Prismacolor to do the finish. Okay. Here, this is Brigitte Roca, and Brigitte is Brigitte's really good with pattern, so she's using, you know, she's using her pattern ability by basically using more markers and she's using a less Prismacolor. And she does that pretty much consistently in all of her work. And she's very, very, very good. Okay. And then here again, this is Jenna Mueller. And this comes a little farther down the line, but Jenna's very good at sort of exaggeration, and we're going to draw some plants. So you'll get some stuff having to do with Jenna too. Okay. And here, this is just a nice value range that people can operate on. All right. And let's see, what else? Oh, yeah. And then here, this is Joel Lee. Here, this is for mad science, which we're going to get into in the next class. But basically, here's the mad scientist lab, and they're designing both a cutaway, and they're going to design one scene like this. And in this case, what I have you doing is you're in one room looking through a doorway composition into the mad scientist device in the background. The great thing about the mad scientist lab is you really don't have to know what he's doing. It just has to be a cool looking lab, right? So if you get in here, you'll notice that Joel is drawing with a lot of nice exaggeration, right? And, you know, Joel graduated and was immediately hired. So, you know, this right here is an example of good enough to get into the industry. And that's what I'm talking about. It's good enough. All the way down the line, I'm talking about good enough. He tells a good story. It's a little bit dumb. You know, it's fun to look at. He knows about lighting. Okay. And so these people are quite good. And, you know, eventually you'll end up with a nice collection of other people's work. All right. Did everybody find that the lecture was helpful? You understood what I was saying today? Okay. Everything added up in the end, didn't it? Right? So now you know how to use everything. You don't need me anymore. All right. Until next week, when I'm going to make it worse by adding more to it. And in the end, you know, a friend of mine who took my class a bunch of times, you know, listening to me say it's easy, it's only one of 3 choices, he finally said, so I think I figured out what you're telling me. And I said, what? And he goes, well, when I'm drawing at all times, I have to consider one of the 300 simple choices which I must be thinking about at all times while I'm drawing. And I said, well, yes, that's absolutely correct. But what's weird is it's not that many choices. I said, you know, you make it sound like that's a lot of choices, but it really isn't. Once you get internalize this stuff, you find that you start sketching through this way of thinking. So once you start internalizing this stuff, you got it. You see what I'm saying? And you'll internalize it really fast. Same thing with anatomy. You know, my problem is I've forgotten all the names of the muscles over the years. I know what they're all shaped like and where they fit and how they work, and I can make the whole thing work. But, you know, I don't say, you know, brachialis, whatever, when I draw the muscle. I just think the shape, right? So I'm thinking of a bunch of different things at the same time, and so can you. All right? I think we're pretty good. Is everything good at this point? Everybody happy? Okay, I'm going to rest my voice for a little bit and then start the next class, okay? So have a good week. Get your homework in on time, okay? And because what happens is an assistant that we have organizes all of your homework. So they wait until the deadline, then they organize all the homework, they send it to me, and then I do the crit. So if you don't get your homework in on time, then I don't see it. You see what I mean? So they just send me what to do, right? So, and then I send it, you know, and then I post it so you can see it. Did everybody get a chance to see their critique? Yeah. Okay. They get a little more elaborate as time goes on. So, okay. Yes. Yes, sir.
So I enrolled in the class recently on Friday, since I spoke to you on, I chatted with you on Instagram. So I never got the time to, you know, turn over the first assignment, but I know about it. I'm doing it, by the way. So I never got my feedback, but I think it is okay. I'll directly jump down to this class's assignment. So just wanted you to know why I never turned out with the assignment, because I had only 2 days. Yeah.
I encourage people to hand homework in, but, you know, I also know people have lives. So, and, you know, you're not enrolled, you know, students in colleges, they don't actually have lives. They're pre-life. So, you can just pound them with homework and just, send them home. But, adults have, lives, kids, things like that to deal with, their own jobs and things. So all kinds of things happen. So what I say is do your best, and I always work with what you got. And again, we keep these classes cheap enough that hopefully if you didn't quite get it the first time, you could take it a second time, right? I can tell you, if you take the entire thing, all 3 classes here, it'll be about a quarter of what it would cost to take it, at a college. So that's the difference. The price difference is enormous. Yeah.
Okay. So I saw 2 classes you have on Drawing America. One is this, and one is related to mechanical objects, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is also related to composition.
That's like the one I would have you take after this one,
Okay.
and then take the composition after that. That's what I would do. And again, all 3 comprise one class, and all I've done is slowed it down because it was always too fast. People can't go 16. I taught at USC in the grad program. They have a 16-week program, but they had to give them like 2-week breaks in the middle, and, people just can't do that. So I think breaking it down into these 6-week segments, we did it 5 weeks last time. I think 6 is perfect. So we added a week, and then the composition, I'll go 6. If we need 8, we'll add two weeks more, so it'll be at the very least an 18-week term instead of a 14-week, but it'll have breaks. And that's all the difference in the world. See, everybody comes back fresh after a break.
Right.
Okay?
I'm in for the 3 classes.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm glad. It pleases me. Okay. So
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do is put a program here, an entire program here. Right. And once I get these things going, I'm going to get into digital painting. So it's going to be, Photoshop painting basics, which once I teach the basics, you could learn from anybody. And then also style development. And in style development, that's more conceptual. That's actually an advanced class. And that's really an advanced class. So I'd have people do this first. And then when we get there, we take everything we learned here and we apply it to style. And and once you get there, if you start producing good work, in this class and in that class, you start putting all this stuff together, you've got a portfolio that'll get you a job. If you'll get a job out of it. You have to hit a certain level, but these are producing the kinds of samples and the kinds of things that will produce a job, provided you cross the bar, right? There's a bar you got to cross, and you have to cross that. I can help you, but you have to cross it. But once you cross it, then you're employable, right? And at certain points, we may do some free, question and answer sessions on how to plan your education and stuff like that on Drawing America too. Those are going to be free. We're just going to let people show up. Okay.
Wow.
All right. Okay. I got to let you guys go so my voice will rest a little bit. The cure is coffee, and then I will come back and do the next 90-minute course. Okay. All right.